Hello guys, welcome again to our channel, and today we're going to be talking about another subject again in the field of criminology. We have here the forensic 5, or the descriptive title of this subject is lie detection techniques. So the basis of the things that we're going to be talking about today is the issuance or the course description and course outline provided by the CHED. You have probably noticed that every time we start a new subject, every time that we start discussing a new subject, I always try to give you an idea on what are the specific topic that we should be talking about on the subject that we are trying to discuss. So that is the goal for the lecture, to introduce to you the subject matter, because again, this is part of the new curriculum of the criminology profession. So if we're going to compare it to the old curriculum, the curriculum that we have before when we are still studying, we have the criminalistic 6, or the polygraphy. So on our old curriculum, it is specifically pinpoint that we are going to be studying polygraphy. But what I have observed on this new curriculum is that it is more on a general subjects that they are trying to focus at. Since the lie detection techniques is a very broad and general term for methods and strategies in order to detect lies. So before we start, I would like to point out the distinction between these two, because we can actually use lie detection and polygraphy interchangeably if we are not that strict with regards to the terms that we are using. But I would like to distinguish lie detection from polygraphy specifically for this subject, because there are terms that we should really distinguish these two. There are part of this discussion that we should really distinguish the term lie detection and polygraphy. Okay, so the distinction that we have is that when we talk about lie detection, this is a general term basically. It means we are referring to different techniques, different studies, different methodologies that are used in order to detect lie. So when we talk about polygraphy, we are referring to one specific study or method of detecting lie, and that is the use of a machine, which we call that the polygraph. Okay, so that's the distinction. When we talk about lie detection, this is a general term that may apply to techniques like, for example, the use of drugs in order to elicit the truth, the use of other devices such as, for example, the psychological stress evaluator, which measures the vibration of the voice in order to detect whether the person is telling the truth, uh, whether the person is putting up some stress in his voice, or the vibration is missing, which sometimes they correlate that, or most of the time they correlate that to lying. So again, the term lie detection is a general term because there are many methods on how we could be able to detect lying using different strategies, using different equipments, and using different principles. But when we talk about polygraphy, this is a very specific way of detecting lie with the use of a machine that we call the polygraph. Okay, so the term polygraph is a specific term. The term lie detection is a general term, and polygraph examination is just one of the many techniques that we can be able to use in order to detect lie. So I do hope that the distinction between these two terms is clear, because in this lecture we're going to be focusing our discussion not only on the polygraph, but also in other methods on how we can be able to detect lies. Okay, so allow me to read to you the course description provided by the CHED for the subject lie detection techniques. So under the course description, it mentioned there that this course includes the study of the different methods and techniques in lie detection. So that's what I had been pointing out earlier, that this subject does not focuses only on one specific lie detection techniques, but then we are going to be tackling other method of detecting lies. Okay, so aside from that, we're going to discuss also the anatomy of lying, its theories, kinds, and types. So basically, under the subject matter lie detection, we're not just focus on familiarizing ourselves with regards to the different lie detection techniques. But if we really are serious in trying to understand or trying to educate ourselves on how are we going to effectively detect lies, not only with the use of different instruments, we should be also trying to educate ourselves regarding the circumstances and the different reasons, different behaviors that we can consider as factors why do people tell a lie. So aside from learning on how to detect them, we should also try to understand the nature of lying. So with this, we're going to be talking about anatomy of lying, the theories, and the different types of lying. Now, it mentioned here that in this study, we're going to include the conduct of polygraph examination. We're going to be discussing the history of polygraph machine, how was it developed. We're going to be discussing the history of the use of the truth serum in layman's term that we talk about. We are going to talk about the history of the use of voice analyzer and many more. Aside from the history, we are also going to discuss the personalities involved on how these different techniques of lie detection was developed. As of course, it's worth knowing how these different instrument or methods has been developed and used in the earlier time in order to detect lies, to have a better understanding, of course, of the concept. Why are we doing these techniques? Why are we adapting these techniques of conducting or detecting lies? So aside from that, we're going to be discussing also the status of these different lie detection techniques in different countries. It's a good way of developing, or it's a good way of identifying which should be adapted and which is more effective and accurate in detecting lies. Because if we notice that many countries use this specific technique in detecting lies, then definitely we can be able to get an idea and probably come up with a program that will try to adapt these effective lie detection techniques and probably try to develop our own way of detecting lies. So we're going to look into this status. Let's say, for example, the case of polygraph examination. Some other countries still use or allows the presentation of polygraph examination result as an evidence in court. But in other countries, they are not accepting the result of the polygraph examination test as an evidence. So let's try to figure out why other countries accept it and why other countries do not. So those are the things that we are also be covering under this subject. To include, of course, how relevant is lie detection techniques or the application of lie detection to criminal investigation. Okay, so that's basically the course description. We can call that the summary of the things that we should be discussing under the lie detection techniques. But of course, we will still try to go part by part of the things that we should be discussing. I made mention that we will be discussing the theories of lying, why do people tell lies, why do people lies, and so on. It's good also to have an idea on the theoretical background of telling a lie. But because if we have a broad understanding with regards to reason why do people tell a lie, we can be able to formulate effectively a good strategy to point out or to detect signs and symptoms of lying. Okay, so it's like we're putting ourselves onto their shoes and we try to figure out how to best negotiate with them for them to tell the truth without probably endangering themselves that much, because there are different reasons why do people tell lies, and they will still continue, or they will continue to tell a lie if they believe that telling the truth will do more damage to them than telling lies. So these are the things that we should try to understand also. So as a lie detector, we try to get the information that we want, the truth from the person, but we should try also to consider the circumstances of that person. How will it affect that person if he will tell the truth? So this are part of the psychological aspect of lie detection. Okay, so we're not just trying to figure out which is the truth, or what is the truth, and what are lies. We try also to figure out why do people do this and why do people do that. So that's part basically of theories of lying and psychology of lying. Then we're going to be talking about the physiological responses of lying, or the practical ways to detect a lie. If we really know the reason behind lying, if we are really that familiar with regards to the concept of lying, then we don't even need a machine to assist us in determining or in telling which statement is lie and which statement is truth, or which person is telling a lie or which person is telling the truth. Yeah, because there are really a lot of physiological responses, or what we call physical responses, that we can observe from the person who is telling the truth and who is telling the lies. So basically, we can be able to figure out who's telling the truth or who's telling a lie based on their physical activities, based on maybe on their facial expressions, based on their movement, based on how quick they answer the questions, and many more. The problem with this is, of course, there is no specific science behind this. I mean, the only science that might involve was, like, for example, excessive sweating, which is definitely can be explained through science with regards to the involvement of the functioning of our internal organs and so on. We have also the changes in voice, which can be explained scientifically with the actions of our nervous system and so on. But other physical symptoms or signs of guilt, we call that signs and symptoms of guilt in our field. Those are basically just as part of the observation studies. So while we might be able to figure out who's telling the truth or is telling a lie, even just by mere observation of the different activities, physical activities of the person that we're trying to investigate, there's still a lot of risk behind this. We might gain something from this because, number one, it's cheap. We don't need any equipments to do it. But the problem is, what is the percentage of success if we try to do this? Remember that most of the lie detector are considered as an expert witness during a court presentation. Whatever statement they're going to make under oath inside the court can be accepted as a fact and as an evidence. So this is very crucial job for a person who is involved in lie detection. So we cannot just rely merely on these observation techniques because the percentage of success is maybe at 50-50%. Okay, so that's the first topic that we should be talking about. Next topic is that we're going to be talking about the different methods of detecting deception. We made mention some of them already. We have the use of a machine, the polygraph machine, that's polygraph examination. We have the use of some mind altering drugs, or sometimes they call that in movies as truth serum. We have the use of alcohol, or we have the intoxication methods or techniques that they're trying to intoxicate a certain person at a specific dose of alcohol, which makes him vulnerable of keeping secrets, which we know for a fact if you are a drinker. So there are a lot of techniques that we should be talking about under this subject. It's not only limited to polygraph examination, but there are a wide variety of techniques that was utilized not only today, but even by our ancestors or in conquest of trying to figure out who's telling the truth or who is lying. So, with that mentioned, we have also here the topic wherein we're going to be discussing the early and contemporary methods of detecting deception. So, we're going to be talking about the methods that our ancestors are using in order to detect lies, such as the use of trial by ordeal, such as by uh, trial by ordeal, which is a very ancient form of trying to detect lies and also trying to give justice or trying to decide a certain case, whichever best benefit them. And also, we're going to be talking about the significant methods that still are considered as of today as relevant methods of detecting lies. Okay, so we should be talking about those also. And we have here the topic wherein we're going to be talking about the polygraph uses and its significance. As you notice, they already focus on polygraph examination, no longer lie detection, but polygraph examination, which means they went from general to specific. Earlier, we were talking about different methods of lie detection, but then they made it to point that we should focus on a specific method. We should focus on a specific techniques that is used as a lie detection, which is among the wide variety of lie detection techniques, they choose polygraph examination. So I have no problem with that. But that's okay. That's very much acceptable since I think this is one that is available. And again, with regards to the percentage of accuracy of the test result, then we have a fighting chance when we try to use polygraph examination result because we have evidences or we have cases already that has been used or that the result of polygraph examination was used as a basis or as an evidence and of course to establish a certain fact. So, with that mentioned, we're going to be talking about the polygraph uses and significance. Polygraph uses, we talk about to which they're using polygraph examination because you might think that polygraph examination is only used for crime investigation, trying to figure out who's telling the truth or who's lying with regards to giving testimony, with regards to accusation, and so on. Other than that, we have also the commercial use of polygraph examinations, such as, for example, testing applicants and many more. So let us proceed to the next topic that we have. We have the phases of polygraph examination. So under the phases, we're going to be talking about the step-by-step process in the conduct of polygraph examination. Polygraph examination is also complicated. It is not done by just one sitting alone. It passed through different phases, stages, and processes before we could get a reliable result. Okay, so it's not like in the movies or TV shows wherein the host or the person will ask a question, then the lie detector will try to analyze the result and so on. So there's a lot of process, there's a lot of circumstances that we should take into consideration before we could get a reliable result. So that's the thing that we should be talking about under the phases of polygraph examination. And also we're going to be talking about the timeline of the modern polygraph. So we have the use of or the components of the polygraph machine had already evolved into something. Before, we have three attachment: the pneumograph, we have the galvanograph, we have the cardiosphemograph as the main three components of the polygraph machine. Nowadays, they have included a lot of components already that also records some other physiological changes that are transpiring in our body, aside from breathing, aside from skin resistance, aside from blood pressure. We have sensors for movement. We have sensors for other activities in our body that are already being used. So we are going to be discussing those progress in the polygraph machine. And then after talking about that, we're going to be talking about also on the factors affecting the accuracy of polygraph technique. Other resources may claim that we have a specific accuracy rate for polygraph examination, but majority of the case, we cannot really figure out the accuracy rate of a polygraph result because there are a lot of factors that we should take into consideration, and these factors actually affects the accuracy of the result of a polygraph examination. It's not a guarantee that if the result shows that you are negative from lying, means you are being truthful to your statements and answers during the polygraph examination, means already that you are not guilty, you are not lying, and so on. In the conduct of polygraph examination, if the circumstances that we're going to mention is not taken into consideration, the result may be less accurate, or the result accuracy will be lessened. Such as, for example, number one of the things that we should be taking into consideration: the general health of the person who will be subjected to polygraph examination. Does he suffering from any type of illness which may render or which may contaminate the result of a polygraph examination, such as, for example, asthma that will affect the breathing pattern of the person, such as, for example, heart disease? So will that affect the result of the polygraph examination? This person who have the medical condition that may contaminate the result should not be subjected to polygraph examination. But what if the polygraph examiner fails to evaluate these underlying health issues? So that will render the result of the polygraph examination inaccurate. Other things, the environment. Does the polygraph room guidelines was followed? So does the area where the polygraph examination was conducted possess no type of disturbance to the subject, to the examiner, and so on? Then if it has any of the things that we can call as distraction, then the result might be contaminated. And what are other factors that we should take into consideration also? The knowledge of the person who will be conducting the polygraph examination. So does he have adequate trainings and adequate experience in the conduct of polygraph examination? Because if none, then definitely the result of the polygraph examination is less accurate. Another thing that we should take into consideration also is the machine that is being used. What if the machine has technical problem or poses technical problem? Then also that will affect the result of the polygraph examination. So those are the factors that we should be taking into consideration. By the way, it's not just limited to those things. There are many other factors that we can be considered as a threat to the result of the polygraph examination. So to decide what is the accuracy rate of a polygraph examination, there is definitely a case-to-case basis, because there are no circumstances that are the same every time. Every polygraph examiner and every polygraph examination poses the different circumstances. Therefore, their accuracy rate may vary oftentimes. And that will bring us to the topic on the limitation and barriers of polygraph technique. So, what are the limitations? What are the barriers that we will be encountering under the conduct of polygraph examination? Which is indeed, there are many of the limitations and there are many of the barriers that we should try to surpass with regards to the conduct of polygraph examination. And the factors that I made mention earlier, the factors that affect the result of polygraph examination, are just some of the barriers and limitation that we should be taking into consideration with. Then again, another topic with regards to the modern components of polygraph instrument, its part and accessories. We can discuss this together with the timeline of modern polygraph. So their development that has been made with the polygraph machine, and with that, some new components are being developed. So we are going to be talking about them also. Then after that, we're going to be talking about also with regards to the question formulation, types of tests, questions, general questions, test supplementary, test questions, and question sequencing. So these are already part of the question formulation, the principles behind this, the guidelines with regards to making in formulating a question. How can we be able to formulate a question that best benefit us in determining whether the person is telling a lie? There are science behind all of this, and those are the things that we are going to be talking about under this specific topic. Then we have also, of course, if you are conducting the examination, we have the chart making, wherein we are trying to make some inputs to the chart where the data are being recorded in the conduct of polygraph examination to specifically increase the accuracy of the polygraph examination. Take this case into consideration. So under the chart, while you are conducting the polygraph examination, there are sudden increase into the breathing pattern of the person. There's sudden increase into the heart palpitation of that person. So would you consider that already as a sign of guilt? Yes or no? It depends. Why? Because what really transpired during that specific part of the chart? Did he move because of the question that was asked to him? Did his breathing pattern change because he was asked relevant questions? Or did the pattern change because something happened, like, for example, he coughed, he moved, or other things that may transpire during the examination? So, how can we figure that out? How can we figure out whether what specific changes in the chart can we consider as a sign of lying and what is not? So, we can only do that if we have effectively and efficiently mark the chart every time there are changes in his movement, or every time a question is being asked to that person. These are all part of the chart making. Okay? So if we have a good chart, we can be able to interpret it also effectively. So basically, the person who makes the chart should also be the person who will try to interpret the chart, so that the efficiency or the accuracy of the polygraph examination will definitely increase. We have also the rules in chart interpretation as part of the topic that I just discussed. Then we have the evaluation of the polygraph results. These are all part of the last phase of the polygraph examination, where you're going to try to figure out already whether the person shows some symptoms of guilt or none. Okay? Then after that, it is also important that we should talk about the legal matters surrounding the conduct of polygraph examination. We have here the rights of the person under polygraph examination. You should explain that at the earlier part of the polygraph examination, because we cannot force someone to undergo polygraph examination. That's really the rule. That's the legal guidelines that we should follow. We cannot force anyone to subject himself to polygraph examination. He can only be subjected to polygraph examination if he allows or he waives his right against self incrimination. So we're going to be talking about more on that if we reach this specific topic. Then we are going to be talking also about the validity and reliability issues of polygraph testing, polygraph admissibility, and in court. So we discussed some of that already. Then of course, we are going to talk also on to the status of polygraph in the Philippines, and what are the institutions that uses polygraph test result in the Philippines. And we can also consider the status of polygraph examination result in courts in countries abroad. So basically, those are the things that we should be talking about under the subject matter lie detection techniques. Okay, so I made mention that there are a lot of other lie detection techniques that we should be talking about, not only polygraph examination, but this is the issuance of CHED, and this is the guidelines of CHED, so we should abide to it. Anyway, generally, on the first part of the discussion, we will be talking about the different lie detection techniques generally. Then after that, we're going to be talking about on one specific lie detection techniques, and that would be the polygraph examination. Okay, so I do hope you understand something or you learn something from this discussion. If you have questions relevant to this matter, feel free to comment on the comment section, and I will try to get back to you soon. So that's it for this lecture. Thank you and have a good day.